If you're over 50, there's a number in your body that could already be killing you, slowly. Right now, while you're watching this, there's a number moving inside your body that you cannot feel, cannot see, and probably haven't checked since your last doctor's visit. It's the pressure pushing against the walls of every artery in your body. And after age 50, it changes faster than almost anyone realizes, quietly, with no pain, no warning, no symptom at all. Until one day, there is one. By the end of this video, you'll know the 3 things that move that number more than anything your doctor has time to explain in a 12-minute appointment, and the one mistake that sends more people over 50 to the emergency room than almost anything else on this list. Stay until the end. The third one surprises almost everyone. Here's the part nobody tells you plainly. High blood pressure isn't really a disease, it's a process. It builds for years, sometimes decades, before a single symptom shows up. Doctors call it the silent killer for a reason that sounds dramatic until you understand it literally. Most people with dangerously high blood pressure feel completely normal. No headache, no dizziness, nothing. That silence is exactly what makes it dangerous. Because by the time you do feel something, chest pressure, a sudden headache unlike any other, trouble speaking, vision changes, the damage has often already started. To your heart, your kidneys, your brain. After 50, your risk climbs sharply. Arteries that were once flexible start to stiffen. And a stiffer artery means your heart has to push harder for every single beat for the rest of your life, unless something changes. So let's talk about what actually changes it. Imagine someone like James, 58 years old, recently retired, feeling, by his own account, perfectly fine. He'd had one blood pressure reading flagged as a little high 2 years earlier, was told to keep an eye on it, and never thought about it again. No follow-up, no real plan. Just a vague sense that he'd deal with it later. This is an incredibly common pattern. Not because people don't care about their health, but because high blood pressure doesn't demand attention the way a broken bone or a bad cough does. It waits. It builds in the background while life keeps moving. Golf, grandkids, retirement plans. For James, later arrived on an ordinary Tuesday morning as a sudden weakness on one side of his face while making coffee. A stroke. Survivable, but life-changing, and entirely consistent with years of blood pressure that was never brought back under control. This isn't meant to scare you, it's meant to make one thing clear. The danger was never a single bad number. It was years of small, ignorable signals stacking up with nobody acting on them. So here's what the evidence actually says you can do about it, starting today. The single most well-studied lever for blood pressure after 50 isn't a supplement or a trend. It's sodium. Most people don't add much salt at the table. The real source is processed and packaged food. Deli meats, canned soups, frozen meals, restaurant food, even bread. The American Heart Association and major clinical trials, including the landmark DASH-Sodium study, consistently show that cutting daily sodium toward about 1,500 to 2,300 milligrams can lower systolic blood pressure by roughly 5 to 6 points on its own, without any medication change. The DASH eating pattern itself, vegetables, fruit, whole grains, lean protein, low-fat dairy, and reduced sodium together, has shown effects in clinical trials comparable to a low-dose blood pressure medication. One important note, some people are told to increase potassium-rich foods as part of this pattern, since potassium helps balance sodium's effect on blood pressure. But if you're on certain blood pressure medications, ACE inhibitors, ARBs, or potassium-sparing diuretics, your body may already be retaining potassium. Don't add potassium salt substitutes or supplements without checking with your doctor first. This single overlooked detail has landed people in the hospital. For decades, the advice was simply, exercise more. But newer research has gotten more specific, and it points somewhere people don't expect. Isometric exercise. Movements where the muscle holds tension without changing length, like a wall sit or a hand grip squeeze. A 2023 meta-analysis published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, pooling over 270 trials, found isometric exercise training produced larger reductions in resting blood pressure than aerobic exercise, dynamic resistance training, or high-intensity interval training. We're talking reductions in the range of 8 to 10 points systolic in some trial averages, a meaningful number. The mechanism makes sense. Holding a muscle under steady tension and then releasing it trains the blood vessels to relax more effectively afterward. Done consistently, a few minutes, a few times a week, this becomes one of the most efficient tools available, especially for people who find traditional cardio hard on aging joints. This doesn't replace walking or regular activity. It adds to it. Here's the one most people genuinely don't expect. Poor sleep and chronic stress don't just feel bad, they directly raise blood pressure through measurable hormonal changes. Studies on sleep duration consistently show that adults sleeping less than 6 hours a night have meaningfully higher rates of hypertension than those sleeping 7 to 8. The reason is your autonomic nervous system, specifically the balance between your fight or flight response and your body's natural calming response. Chronic stress keeps that fight or flight system switched on longer than it should be, keeping blood vessels constricted even when there's no actual threat. Slow, controlled breathing, inhaling for around 5 seconds, exhaling for around 5 seconds, repeated for a few minutes, has been shown in multiple studies to activate the body's calming response and produce short-term drops in blood pressure. It's not a replacement for treatment, but it's a real, measurable tool, and it costs nothing. This is the one I promised at the start. It's not skipping a walk. It's not one salty meal. It's stopping or changing blood pressure medication without talking to a doctor first, because of side effects, because of cost, because someone felt fine and assumed the problem was solved. Blood pressure medications don't cure the underlying condition, they manage it. Stopping suddenly can cause blood pressure to rebound, sometimes higher than before treatment started. If a medication is causing side effects, swelling, a persistent cough, dizziness, that's a real conversation to have with a doctor, often resulting in a dose change or a different medication entirely. It is not a reason to quietly stop. And if you ever experience sudden facial drooping, arm weakness, slurred speech, a severe sudden headache, or chest pain, that's not a monitor it situation. That's emergency care immediately. None of this, diet, movement, sleep, stress, medication, works in isolation. They work together, the same way the problem built up over years, not days. If there's one thing worth taking from this video, it's this. Blood pressure after 50 isn't something that happens to you. It's something you have real, evidence-backed tools to influence, starting with your next meal, your next walk, and your next conversation with your doctor. If this helped you understand something you'd been wondering about, consider subscribing. I'll be covering the specific foods, the exact isometric routine, and how to read your home blood pressure monitor correctly in upcoming videos. Take care of that number. It's quieter than almost anything else in your body, and that's exactly why it deserves your attention.